I know the game that you're playing, but we're gonna look at this. You know what I'm saying? We're gonna look at this. What we see here predicted. We see Jules Green, a self-proclaimed prophet. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, you can self-proclaim your brains too. We see the Wagner boss. You know what I'm saying? Wagner boss Prigozhin, whatever his name, listed as a passenger on a listed as a passenger on a crash jet which killed 10 people. Okay, good for them. We see the New York City, the NYCHA, you know what I'm saying, Bronx tenant president after accusing her of abusing staff, you know what I'm saying, through doing petty tasks. Abuse staff through doing petty tasks, wearing revealing pink nightgown. Nobody give a flying fuck. Nobody give a flying fuck about that. You know what I'm saying? You know what I'm saying? Nobody really care about that. You know, when we really look at a lot of this that's going on, we see this. And see here, we see Donald Trump to turn himself into Fulton County. We see here Donald Trump is expected to surrender to the Fulton County jail tomorrow evening to on racketeering. He didn't do no racketeering. It's bullshit and it's a lie. I don't believe that. And conspiracy charges over his efforts to overturn the results of the 2020 presidential election. So who cheated it? They had to cheat it for him to want to overturn it. You know what I'm saying? You still haven't proved that you won that election. You know what I'm saying? Where's the proof? That's hearsay and propaganda and talk. And anybody's going for that is just an idiot and on the way to your destruction as well. So don't think that it ain't going to come back to haunt you. Okay. Yeah, I've seen it happen. I don't care how long it takes. It will. You see? Yes, he talking about racketeering charges. You know, the efforts to overturn the presidential election in the state of Georgia, according to two people briefed on the matter. The former president, you know what I'm saying? I mean, not the former president, the president of the United States. Fuck your farmer, seeking seeking to distract from the integrity. Seeking to distract from indignity of, surrendering by turning his appearance into a circus. In essence, he had lawyers negotiate the booking to take place during the prime viewing hours of the prime viewing for the cable news network. Trump became a criminal defense in the Ford case last week when the grand jury handed up a sprawling 41 indictment accusing him. Yeah, that you set up. You probably mean talking about 41. Yeah, you set it up. You know what I'm saying? Y'all set him up real good, did you? Accusing him of 18 co-defendants engaging in criminal, you know what I'm saying, so and so. Why isn't Trump taking part in tonight's Republican primary debate? You know what I'm saying? The decision to spawn the debate in favor of a taping interview with Tucker Carlson solves the political questions of how to inflict damage on the 2024 field, but it also eliminates, concerns of his remarks in the high profile event could increase his legal exposure and so forth. I still think he should take place in the debate, but that's Donald Trump to make the decision. You know what I'm saying? He's a businessman. Having any of the other co-defendants turn themselves in, the first two defendants in the Georgia election, subversive case have been booked in the Fulton County Jail. You know what I'm saying? Scott Hill and Atlanta area bail bondsman was booked at the at what? At the Rice Street Jail Tuesday. John Eastman, a Trump attorney and allegedly one of the main people behind the Trump plot, plans to halt the certification of Joe Biden victory. Also, voluntarily turned himself in in late yesterday. You know what I'm saying? When we look here, we see what else is happening. Mark Meadows, you know what I'm saying? Trump's former White House chief of staff, you know what I'm saying? Chief of staff has asked the federal court to block his arrest. You know what I'm saying? Oh yeah, they're gonna arrest all of them because they want us to see the demon Democrats as not trying to defend the country. You know what I'm saying? We see sound very much like organized crime. You know what I'm saying? Witnessing Trump's oh yeah, the problem. Oh, they're gonna make it all kinds of. You know what I'm saying? Document kids. Rants failed testimony. Oh yeah, we see Rudy Giuliani delivers. You know what I'm saying? See things ran in route to surrender in Georgia case gonna come for you. Okay, we see young congressman is sounding the alarm about election security. We should listen to him. Yeah, we see here where the coming civil war. Yeah, okay, we see that. We see all migrants are not asylum seekers. Oh, we know that for a fact. You know what I'm saying? We know that for a fact. That's why he said he opened border and called them asylum seekers, so we don't pay attention to who's really coming through that border. An invasion is coming, and if you don't wake the fuck up, you know what I'm saying, and exonerate and put this man back in, what you gonna pay a heavy fucking price. Remember, I told you. You know what I'm saying? You know what I'm saying? But I told you what it's called. Betrayal is a son of a bitch. Donald Trump has a trick up his sleeve to upstage the Republican primary debate. You know what I'm saying? Okay. Well, we're gonna wait to see what happens, and from here on out, we just gonna go along with what we see is going along, based on the fact that we have to look at this thing from, you know what I'm saying, we see Trump indictment could hand enormous power to prosecutors. Oh yeah, oh yeah, yeah. You know what I'm saying? We got another this other Robert, whatever his name wants to know how many federal agents were in the plane that hit the Twin Towers. You know what I'm saying? I want the truth about 9/11. So do I. So keep on the neck, Mr. Rabbit, whatever your name is. You know what I'm saying? Stay on the motherfucking neck. You know what I'm saying? It's still on the motherfucking neck. You know what I'm saying? We see Team Biden has opened the floodgates, you know what I'm saying, literally for illegal migrants. Oh yeah, I told you, you are in fucking trouble. You know what I'm saying? Between Ukraine and the bullshit and the border, you are in fucking trouble. We see the Biden creepy ass White House has opened the floodgates to illegal migrants literally. Tuesday Post article post the 144 floodgate in Arizona board wall that have been welded welded open permanently. What can be the intent except to aid illegal crossings? Okay, we see, and we talking about Laredo, raping ass, pedophilia. You know what I'm saying? Laredo, you know what I'm saying? Migrants are now flooding across at an average of a rate of 1,400 per day, putting Tuscan, Tuscan ahead even of other border crisis zones, El Paso and Laredo, Texas. The Tuscan border post saw 42,561 illegal crossings in July, a near 56% rise in an alleged mind-boggling 27,294 in June. Y'all continue. Y'all continue with Creep Joe Biden and putting Trump in jail. Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, you keep putting it in jail. Y'all gonna pay a heavy price. Oh yeah. Oh yeah, that price is coming, baby. You know what I'm saying? We see the pedophilia Burke is back on the scene. He got arrested. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. We see a teen student delivers a master class on the true of the Confederate flag. Let's see what he has to say. You know what I'm saying? But we see this is coming in. He says, 6 years ago, the high school student named Christopher Justice, you know what I'm saying, equitably, equitably explained the multiple problems with flying the Confederate flag. A video clip of just true bomb, no, a video clip of Justice True Bomb has made the viral rounds a few times since then. And here it is once again. You know what I'm saying? Here it is once again. You know what I mean? Justice, you know what I'm saying? Here it is. I guess you say here it is once again. Viral a few years ago. Here it is once again. Attend. Wait a minute. Once again, get the attention it deserves. Just doesn't just he, justice ju, justice doesn't just explain why the flag is seen as a symbol of racism. He also explained the history of why the flag originated and why flying a Confederate flag makes no sense for people who claim to be loyal Americans.
Flag, like what it's like, how the war started. It's kind of evolved into like a racial thing when really it was not started as a racial thing at all. And I think that like it should absolutely be flown like publicly.
Any other opinions as far as agreeing with him or disagreeing with him? Okay, Mr. Justice.
You do have a right to fly it. I do not think it should be flown on public property, like in front of a state house. You can also fly it at protests. But he mentioned misconceptions.
Hold on a second, people. Somebody trying to interfere with it. They're trying to interfere with it. You said they trying to interfere with it. Hold on 1 second, people. I'm coming, but this young kid seemed to have had a powerful understanding of the truth in the matter is what we're looking at here, and which is very important for young people to focus on these things as usual in their life, because it means for the betterment of your mentality and yourself. Do not let adults always lead your mind. You have years and years that you're going to grow and you're going to learn. One thing I believe in is letting children, not children, but children grow up, come to teenager, young men and adult, and have the strength and the power they need by the time they reach there to rock the boat. You know what I'm saying? It ain't just about them and them only. You see what I'm saying? It ain't just about them and them only.
Confederate flag, like what it's like, how the war started.
There are no misconceptions about that flag. The flag that we see today is not actually the Confederate for the United States. It has a blue upper right-hand corner with 7 stars in a circle, 2 red stripes, and in the middle a white stripe. The flag we see today is an interpretation of a Confederate battle flag. And the interpretation went up in the 1960s, around the time the Civil Rights Movement started. And to the point where it's not racially motivated.
It was not started as a racial thing at all. And I think that
not guns, we weren't trying to raise taxes.
it should absolutely be flown like
200 people in Lawrence, Kansas.
Okay, now Chris.
publicly.
Any other opinions as far as agreeing with him or disagreeing with him? Okay, Mr. Justice.
You do have a right to fly it. I do not think it should be flown on public property, like in front of a state house. You can also fly it at protests. But he mentioned misconceptions. Then how come it's a symbol for so many groups like the KKK and the National Socialist Movement, who, as you all probably know, have white supremacist and neo-Nazi ideologies? Also, I find it ironic that people claim to be patriots when they fly that flag. The Confederates stabbed the Union in the back. They shot first, they murdered 500,000 American soldiers, and they argued that it was because of states' rights. I ask, states' rights to do what? What were we considering getting rid of at the time?
Woo-hoo! That white boy is on fire. Oh, he's on fire tonight. And he's right in all ways. There is no reason for them to say that, you have a right to fly that flag. He has the legitimate points. All right.
They stabbed the Union in the back. They shot first. They murdered 500,000 American soldiers. And they argued that it was because of states' rights. I ask, states' rights to do what? What were we considering getting rid of at the time?
Uh-huh. You see? State rights, what was you considering to get rid of at the time? Black people? Mm-hmm.
What were we considering getting rid of at the time?
Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying? Oh, yeah. They didn't want to play that part. They're not going to play that part. Oh, yeah. Every time they going to play that part, every time you got that smoke on their race. Let's go here and see what we got.
How's everybody doing? Okay, so the format of this is a little bit different than what some of you may have heard. It's actually going to be an open discussion, all right? So Robbie came to me a couple weeks back with the whole topic of the Confederate flag, which is absolutely a hot button topic right now, right? Like, especially after the situation that happened in South Carolina, you had a lot of people who were discussing, is it heritage or hatred, right? And in this school, we have people who have viewpoints on a variety of sides. So the goal of Robbie and myself is to facilitate a community where we can have an open discussion that's civil, all right? So at this point, like, we're gonna open it up. I'm gonna ask questions, and anybody in here can speak, okay? But the rules of the debate are that you have to allow whoever's speaking to finish their thought. And there's not going to be any winner or loser. I mean, I don't think that anybody here is going to leave thinking whatever else different. Whatever you think is your opinion, and you are entitled to that opinion. But we want to keep it respectful. We don't want to get ratchet up in here. All right, we got Gandhi on the wall, for God's sakes. So what would Gandhi say if we got ratchet, right? Even though that word probably didn't exist when he was alive. So the idea of the Confederate flag for a lot of people is controversial. What I want to know is your opinion. Do you feel that the Confederate flag should be allowed to be worn or flown publicly, specifically like at a school like East? So thoughts. Anybody can open it up. I'm gonna give it to Drake Yost first, though, because I know he's a opinionated young man. What are your opinions on the Confederate flag?
Absolutely. That's First Amendment right. I think that people are completely misinformed about how the flag was, like what the flag, like what it's, like how the war started. It's kind of evolved into like a racial thing when really it was not started as a racial thing at all. And I think that it should absolutely be flown like publicly.
Any other opinions as far as agreeing with him or disagreeing with him? Okay, Mr. Justice.
You do have a right to fly it. I do not think it should be flown on public property, like in front of a state house. You can also fly it at protests. But he mentioned misconceptions. There are no misconceptions about that flag. The flag that we see today is not actually the Confederate flag. The Confederate flag is similar to that of the United States. It has a blue upper right-hand corner with 7 stars in a circle, 2 red stripes, and in the middle a white stripe. The flag we see today is an interpretation of a Confederate battle flag. And the interpretation went up in the 1960s, around the time the Civil Rights Movement started. And to the point where it's not racially motivated. Then how come it's a symbol for so many groups like the KKK and the National Socialist Movement, who, as you all probably know, have white supremacist and neo-Nazi ideologies?
Young man.
I find it ironic that people claim to be patriots when they fly that flag. The Confederates stabbed the Union in the back. They shot first. They murdered 500,000 American soldiers. And they argued that it was because of states' rights. I ask, States' rights to do what? What were we considering getting rid of at the time? Not guns, we weren't trying to raise taxes, it was slavery. We were trying to stop the expansion of slavery to the West. The Southern aristocracy panicked and left the Union. They said, we are not Americans, we are from the South, so we're starting our own country. And then they proceeded to launch numerous terrorist attacks against the Union, shooting at Fort Sumter, murdering 200 people in Lawrence, Kansas.
Okay, now first, Red Points, I want to give them a chance to return. Are there any people that want to get out, right?
He dropped that fire, didn't he? He dropped that fire. You heard what he said? You heard what he said? He said that's perfectly right in all sense.
War on northern aggression. North was making unconstitutional and unfair taxes on the South to promote northern manufacturers, because the South's main export was cotton. The Britain manufacturers were doing better than the North, and so they were selling their goods cheaper here in the U.S. So the North had 5 times more population than the South, so all political votes would go in favor of the North, obviously. And so they voted to put a tariff, like the tariff of 1825 by John Quincy Adams. And that tariff put taxes and promoted the northern industries while also degrading the southern economies, which is unfair. And they didn't want unconstitutional and unfair treatment, so that's why the South is suffering.
So what do we say to people who say that they find the flag to be insulting? In what way does that stand? Like, in here, who finds does anybody in this room find the flag insulting other than Mr. Justice? Okay, why do you find the flag insulting?
Well, I think it represents a time when racism was huge and slavery was huge, and even if the war wasn't started because of slavery, it still represents a time where colored people were discriminated against, and so it's kind of frustrating to just see that.
Isn't it good to know about the past and respect what's happened, though? Whether you agree with it or not, you should know it and be knowledgeable on where our country came from. Because if all that didn't happen, the South and the North, we wouldn't be where we are today. We wouldn't be sitting in this classroom. The whole realm of everything would be different. So I think it's really important part of history that we shouldn't just throw away and get rid of.
Well, can I ask a question? Can I ask a question to go along with that, and then you guys can go forward with what you're saying? When you bring up the question of history and how it's important to recognize history, then in that right, would you say that it's okay for maybe a person from Germany to fly the Nazi flag and represent that history and say, well, if we don't want to forget what happened, could you see why that could possibly be contradicted?
We study it in school. You don't see many people flying the Nazi flag. I was just talking about the history part, but we should be knowledgeable. I didn't say we should or should not fly it.
But you think we should definitely? No, I don't think what the discussion is. We definitely have to remember that it's there, right? Like, many people are saying, well, we got to put it in museums at least. But to fly it publicly, do you think that should be allowed? Neville's your
Yeah, I mean, I think it should absolutely be allowed. I mean, when you get offended by something, just because a small percentage of Americans get offended by something, doesn't mean you can take away their First Amendment rights. I mean, we wouldn't have any free speech if a certain amount of people got offended by something, because everything can be offensive.
Okay. Raymond?
I feel that you definitely have the right to be offended by the Confederate flag. Even now when you have like Klan meetings, they fly the Confederate flag. And so someone, like a group of people who hate minorities, not just blacks, but Hispanics, Jews, people from the Middle East, they have this ideology that you, as a minority, are lesser, then you definitely have the right to be offended, even if it was just a mystery.
Well, I mean, you can be offended, but you can't deny someone the First Amendment.
I mean, I feel like that's also like hate speech also. So hate speech is not allowed in the Constitution.
What is hate speech?
So like at Klan meetings, I feel like everything within a Klan meeting is hate speech. And so I feel like the only reason that they are allowed to have these meetings is because it's the First Amendment right. But when you start to fully belittle minorities, then you shouldn't be allowed to fly the flag and have those meetings.
See, what I'm stressing is that you guys are misinformed about the flag's origins. You're saying that it's racist, but the flag is not a racist thing. It's been molded by our society to be looked at as a racist thing, when really it's not.
Okay,
and,
so
okay.
sorry. I get like that the history, you might see it as not being racist, but right now, like currently, it is seen as racist. The Klan can have it, so I feel like we can look at it as it not being racist.
Brittany?
Going off what Rainey said, so you said that the Confederate flag, like the origins of it wasn't racist. Like that's not why we created it.
Yes.
But the origins of the swastika as well were not racist. It was a Hindu symbol for well-being and health. So that has transformed into a discriminatory, bigotry symbol. The same thing has happened with the Confederate flag. So you don't see people like putting the swastika up saying, oh, this is for well-being and health. It has transformed and evolved as over time. So the same thing has happened with the Confederate flag. So now it doesn't mean the same thing as it meant when it was originally.
And to that point, that's the same thing we can say with the American flag. I think Michael brought up a good point about we have to recognize the history. We can't disregard the history. The history of the American.
Yes.
Okay. So we see where the kids have an opinion. But when you look at it, the first guy, I forgot his name, Justice or whatever, who gave that powerful speech, did make sense about that whole situation in itself. So you listen, we're going to go back and we're going to listen to what he says in itself on the matter. You see what I'm saying? We're gonna look at that, excuse me, and see if we could. But what he did say made perfect sense. You know what I'm saying? He said they went and started their own, you know what I'm saying, aside from the North to actually put themselves in a light that they would become, a separate nation, because how we know they even had their own money. When they lost the war, their money had no value because it was devalued. You know what I'm saying? It had no value. But when we look at the situation, of the Confederate flag, it really don't mean a motherfucking thing to me. It's because if it was created by them, that's their flag. You know what I'm saying? And like he said, it became a battle flag as well as a symbol of battle. So it's not like, and then it was used by those same people to push a terrorist form a terrorist group by the Demon Democrats forming a terrorist group, and that being the symbol of their group. And then they went around using that flag to beat up on the Republicans and the other people who may have been black people who may have been trying to move away from them. And they used that as their flag of terrorism. That's where the bad part comes in. So this is Point Blank saying, stay right, stay tight. We're going to come back in the fight, and we're going to get it right. We must keep looking and keep our eyes sharp every time. Let no one tell you or choose your path unless it's one of understanding each other in unification of what we need to do to heal our nation. So I say, farewell. One, we will meet again.